I know you know the answer to this, but I want to hear it anyway. Which is smarter, to be able to read a book or to read the room?
Well, as a writer and also a bookworm, I would definitely say to read the room.
Okay, so as a writer and a bookworm, you definitely have the ability to read a book. And as a human being, you have the emotional intelligence to read the room. But knowing you as I do, you may not have the intelligence to tell me the capital of Albania.
Okay, all right, I will give you that. But does being smart in one area and not in another make you simply stupid in general? Do we confuse knowledge with intelligence?
This isn't a podcast with all the answers.
It's a conversation about figuring things out as you go.
From two very different generations.
With Michelle R. Williams
and Nick Hurst.
Welcome to Life Happens. The Albania joke was so unfair of you. Seriously, what the hell was that supposed to be? Maybe I don't know that. I mean, you are right though. But on the other hand, you kind of used it against me over there.
We should just explain that when we were discussing this episode and talking about multiple intelligences, and Michelle said to me as an example, it's like, if I were to say I don't know the capital of Albania, because let's face it, she didn't.
So, yeah, and I said that just as an example, and your first reaction to it was, oh, so what's the capital of Albania? Man, come on. I was trying to make a point that everyone is smart in certain areas and everyone is stupid in certain areas. And instead of picking all of these areas I'm smart in, you asked me what's the capital of Albania. Come on, I'm not asking you to speak Czech to me either.
Tirana, by the way, capital of Albania.
Yeah, okay, you just proved yourself to be smart. I hope you're happy. And yeah, okay.
I'm happy.
Can we move on?
It's a great day.
Perfect. It is a great day. It will be a great day. And now, actually, but you are rude to me, so I actually don't want to mention it. Let's move on. No, I'm kidding. I am kidding. Because I did the math, because we are recording this episode on the last day of April. And I did the math because of me moving to Ireland. And we just figured it out that now, when you are listening to the episode, it's Tuesday, the 26th of May. Which is Nick's birthday. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Does that mean I don't have to wish you happy birthday on your actual birthday when I already did it in April?
We will revisit that subject privately.
All right, okay. Well, either way, I already will be in Ireland. So, damn it. Few days in Ireland and I already have to care about your birthday. Everything is about you at the end of the day, isn't it?
And you're in Ireland. So I'm pretending you're in Ireland now and I don't know what it's like.
I don't want to. That's crazy. That's crazy. This will be the first episode I will actually be in Ireland and
yeah,
I won't know
how to imagine you. We won't be seeing Freddie behind you.
We won't be seeing Freddie. Actually, you will for a while because we have pre-recorded episodes right now. So for a while, I'm still in Czechia, at least in our podcast. But actually, let me allow myself a bit of self-promotion here, not because I'm trying to be an influencer, but because I'm really talking about Ireland a lot. So in case you guys are interested in seeing how my life in Ireland is unfolding, you can follow me on my personal Instagram, which is _Michelle R. Williams _ I think that you will recognize me when you see me because I post quite a lot. And I posted a lot from America, and I'm sure posting a lot from Ireland. So in case you need proof that it's just not a funny story, funny joke we are doing for this podcast, as Nick mentioned in the last episode, you can check it out. Thank you. And wish Nick happy birthday while you are at it.
Thank you. It'd be nice to see the pictures and even videos from Ireland and get an idea of place. Because, I mean, where you are now in Czechia, I know the town and surroundings well, obviously.
Yeah.
So I can picture you there, but I can't picture you in Ireland. So till I manage to
We will see.
get over there sometime to annoy you further.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, I'm actually not in Ireland for Nick's sake. Don't tell him I'm there. Yeah, let's move on.
So shall we start with, what is the capital of Ireland?
Oh, come on. That is so not funny. Capital of Ireland is Dublin. Thank you very much. And I can even tell the difference between the two fucking Irelands, all right?
Good.
Thank you. Jeez. Stop making me look stupid over here, all right?
I'm not. I would never accuse you of being stupid because, as we were talking about or briefly mentioned, there are multiple intelligences. So what does being intelligent mean? What does being smart mean? What does having knowledge mean?
That is actually a very good question. And my answer behind it is the whole reason why we are doing this episode. Because I feel like most people imagine smart and intelligent people or a person as someone who's educated, which I highly disagree with. Because unfortunately, I did meet a lot of highly educated people who were absolutely stupid and the other way around. So consider it my hot take for the episode. Do you have the same opinion on that, actually?
To an extent, yes. I would temper it slightly by saying that being highly educated does not necessarily mean being highly intelligent. And we talked about at the very beginning the difference between being able to read a book and read a room. Read a book, it's a skill, a learned skill. Reading a room is emotional intelligence, which is, can that be learned?
That's also a learned skill. It's just not that obvious that it's something it can be learned.
Yeah, it's because it's not like at school, What are you doing now? What's happening after break? Oh, we've got our emotional intelligence lessons. That doesn't happen.
That should be the case. Hear me out. It might just be me, but that should be the case. Because 99% of things I've studied during my school years, I don't remember them and I don't need to remember them. But being emotionally intelligent is something that's so important. I mean, to me personally or like in general. And hear me out. Being emotionally intelligent is much more important than knowing what the capital of Albania is. All right?
Okay.
Because it's something you need every single day. What other skills, maybe apart from language and skills having to do something with your job, do you actually use every single day? It's probably not geography if you are not like a pilot or flight attendant or something like that,
But this is a good point. Tirana, by the way, in case you forgot.
Nick, you used to be my teacher. You know me. No matter how many times you tell me, I won't remember. Okay? In your case, maybe, in spite of that, but just you are wasting your breath.
Here, we've moved on to the limits of formal education. And I agree with you. We're on the same page with this one, basically. And it's not the page of the Atlas with Albania in it, clearly. But
I will start counting it and I will bet how many times you will say that during this episode. Because we are 10 minutes in and you already mentioned it 3 times.
All right. I'll try not to mention it again. I would argue that formal education, the biggest benefit of formal education is that it teaches you how to learn, not what you learn. Because as you say, probably 90% of the things you learn in school, you're never going to need in your adult life unless you do a lot of pub quizzes or something and you need lots of general knowledge.
Yeah.
Everybody has specific areas that they will funnel into for their work. They will follow generally the areas where they're good at things. And that might not even be something that you do with your mind. It might be physical work that you do and you have a mental capacity for doing that. So it actually probably does involve your mind. But so much of what you do at school, you will probably mentally discard. But what you have gained, I would argue, is that ability to take on and process knowledge, because you'll need to do that for the rest of your life. You'll need to do it probably for your job, that you'll be learning new skills. You will need to know how to learn and how to process and remember information. Also, just the business and the bureaucracy of life. You're going to have to deal with sorting out your taxes and dealing with house stuff and all that boring kind of admin that we all have. Well, you may not have it as much as I do at the moment, but
yet
you will one day. But we have the ability in our mind to take on new skills, learn them, and to put them into effect. So what you're learning at school is not the be all and end all of your life. It is the ability that you are gaining to learn. It's, if you like, you're starting to exercise the muscle that is your brain. I used to say at school, it's like slight sidetrack, but it kind of follows what I was just saying about things that you don't need after you leave school. When I was at school, I was terrible at maths, as we say in English. I know you and Americans say math. We say maths.
What do you mean, you and Americans?
Czechs and Americans. You abbreviate mathematics, plural word, into math. But in English, we say maths. Anyway, I was terrible at it and I hated doing it. And it's one of those subjects, and I know particularly in the Czech education system, that a huge amount of importance is put upon it. But some people's brains are not wired to do math.
Literally.
And some people's brains are wired to, for example, do languages instead of other things, whatever.
Oh, are we naming all the things you can't do? I like that.
So I used to say, as a sort of kind of self-justification to all my friends at school, because I was so bad at maths, and I wasn't the only one, I said, look, after we leave school, the only people who are going to need maths are maths teachers. Now, obviously, that is not quite true, but it made me happy at the time. But the fact is that a lot of the stuff that you learn at school, you're not going to need. You're going to follow something that you're good at, because it'd be really dumb to try and do a job that involves something that you're really bad at. But it's just that, what you've done is you have learned how to learn. And that's intelligence, not the knowledge itself.
I think you're being too optimistic there. I think I know what you mean, but unfortunately, I don't think it's the case. You sort of put it like, oh yeah, school taught you how to learn. Well, my school didn't. And I think that, give an example from someone who was always the gifted child. I was always the one who just was on the top of the class without doing much for it. Because I don't know, you can call that intelligence. You can just call it knowing what the teacher will ask about, whatever you want to call it. The thing is, then I never really had to study. Throughout my elementary school, didn't really study. Even throughout my high school, the only time I did study was in the train on my way to school every morning. That was the only time I ever studied. And then I remember my finals came, and after 13 years of education, suddenly I was sort of forced to learn so much at the same time. And I remember I was lost. I was like, I don't know how to study effectively, because the way our system works is that you remember it like when you are trying to remember a poem. And then you literally throw up on the paper, and the moment you do, you forget it because you don't need it anymore. And you have to learn something else. And your brain has only certain capacity to hold information. So after studying for 4 years for my finals, I had to study all over again, because I didn't remember what I learned 3 years ago, even though I should. Talking about this, I'm talking most about history of art, which was the most important exam I had. And I had an amazing teacher. She was absolutely perfect, such a great teacher. But still, I didn't remember what she told me 3 years ago. because no one ever told me how to learn. And I think it's very, I think that that's a very personal experience. I think we already talked about this topic a bit when we are talking about memory, how like different people have different memory techniques and different learning techniques. But the thing is that you are sort of there on your own to learn that. Because you have to study for that test and you are trying to figure it out what's working for you. But no one ever, during my school years, no one ever told me, hey, there are different learning techniques, or like you should learn how to learn instead of memorizing dates. No one ever told me. And, obviously it's been some time. And I really hope that nowadays the education system is doing better. I don't really have high hopes for Czech education system, but I hope that worldwide it's getting better and we are actually talking about these things. But no one ever told me, and I had to learn how to learn.
Okay,
and I'm not sure I still know how to do that, to be fair.
What you're saying then is that schools are good, or they're there to help you learn how to pass exams, but not how to think for yourself.
Literally, yes.
And
that's what I'm saying.
There is clearly truth in that, but it's starting to at least give the brain the ability to take on knowledge. I mean, the first things that we
it's
learn,
training your brain. You are right about that, of course. Yes.
We learn in England, we call it the 3 R's that you learn, which is a slight joke. Have you heard of it?
You told us. Oh my gosh, look at me remembering things you told us. You did tell us when we were students, like ages ago.
I can picture it now, actually.
Look at me remembering anything you ever said. Wow. I mean, that's all I remember. I don't remember what the 3 R's actually are. I just know that you told us.
It's kind of a joke because only one of them begins with R.
Of course.
The basic things but they sound like they begin with R, that's the thing. The basic things that you learn to start with that then become fundamental to your life, and they are to everybody, is reading, writing, and arithmetic, which of course is actually arithmetic. Being able to add up, take away, multiply, and divide. That's about as far as it goes for me when it comes to anything mathematical.
Me too. When you were talking about math, I remembered my elementary school math teacher. You know exactly who I'm talking about. And I was really good at maths when I was a kid. Like really, I was the top of his class always. And I remember when I told him I will be going to an art school where you don't have maths anymore. And he was so disappointed and so angry with me. He was like, oh my gosh, what a waste of your great brain, or something like that. And I remember being like, well, I will be learning other things. I will still be using my brain. Just because I'm going to an art school doesn't mean I will stop using my brain. And I think that was the first time when I properly realized how judgmental people are to different kinds of being smart or different kinds of intelligence, as long as it has nothing to do with numbers. When you can't do numbers, basically you are stupid, which is just ridiculous to say.
Completely. So what we're talking about is that then in schools can give you lots of information that you have to memorize. So effectively, you're just kind of using one skill there, memory, the ability to memorize stuff. As you say, we talked about that in another episode. So we mentioned multiple intelligences earlier on, which people may be familiar with. Do you want to just run through what those multiple intelligences are?
Well, I'm not quite sure that I can pinpoint like all of them, because I think it depends on exactly what you are talking about or what you take as intelligence, which, for example, in psychology is still highly debatable. So I don't want to, like just name a list and put it out there as a fact, because, I don't really know that. But for example, like different intelligence can be social intelligence, which means you can work with people. It can be outer social or intersocial. which means you can either read people very well, understand social settings, and so on, which also includes emotional intelligence. And that's obviously how much you understand and can work with emotions, either with other people or yourself, because these two things are actually separate. And one person can be very good with like inner emotional intelligence, but terrible with the outer one. So that's one of them. Then you can have basically any intelligence. You can have practical intelligence, which is knowing how to live life, how to make decisions, how to just work through world, basically. You can have manual intelligence, which is kind of weird to call it an intelligence, but to a certain point it is, working with your hands. And that also goes with like creative intelligence often, which again, I don't think I have to explain that one. And basically, you can be something smart, and that something can be anything. It can be geography smart, it can be people smart, it can be music smart, it can be physics smart, it can be absolutely anything. And I believe that every single person is smart in one area of life or the world.
I agree. I've always said that I believe everyone is good at something.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to finding out what it is, really. And I think some people never do. That's the thing. And I think that if there's one thing that formal education can do, and the interaction and relationships that you build up perhaps with your educators should be able to help you identify what it is that you're good at, and maybe even suggest, or to refer to the last episode, advise you on the right life direction to go in. For example, if you're really bad at maths, don't advise that person to go into working in computers and stuff like that, but where you're going to need maths. You know, if you're good at English and writing, then maybe get a job in the media or something like that. If communication is your skill, but these are sort of very key points that that
the school should do.
Well, they could do. They could help, because we all need to try and identify what it is that we're good at. And that might be that we're actually good at some physical task. And remember, a lot of physical tasks take a lot of brain work and coordination and so forth. So it's not to put a value on these things. It's to just find what it is that you're good at. Because if you're going to spend 40, 45 years of your life doing something, as I always would say to kids at school, it's a lot better to do something that A, you're good at, and B, you enjoy doing. And you're more likely to enjoy doing something that you're good at than something that you're bad at. So find that skill and exploit it. But my takeaway from this would be, and I know, I am the eternal optimist, but I would say everybody's good at something. Find out what it is you're good at.
Yeah, no, I share that. I'm not an optimist, and I still think that's right. But I also think, I wanted to say that for me, I think that that's what school should do: help you identify what you are good at, and also teach you how to learn, but also teach you or help you to know how to think for yourself. But what I wanted to say was that I recently did some studying about IQ and IQ testing mostly. And I just find it really funny to a certain point, because basically there was this one sentence that I absolutely loved. And I can't tell you now where exactly I heard it or read it, but they kept repeating it, was that the only thing that IQ tests show is that you are good in IQ tests. And I love it. There was this whole research about it, which showed that the more tests you do, the better you are in them. Obviously, which, that may be obvious, but at the same time, as everything else is a skill. And basically, it doesn't say anything about how smart you are, because all the IQ tests are based on the same model. And when you figure that out, you will be getting better. but it doesn't really show your intelligence. And also, that's basically the thing I'm saying, that these things only show or only focus on certain intelligences, if I say it like that. It asks you a lot of complicated questions. It asks you math question, and basically it sort of just only shows that you understand a question you are being asked. But it certainly doesn't test your emotional intelligence, it doesn't test your creativity, and it definitely doesn't test your manual skills. So if artists or people who work with their hands, or even people who are more socially smart, even studied people like psychologists, they have worse results in IQ tests than people who work with math or computers or geography and stuff like that, because these tests are focused on that. And so basically it will tell you are stupid, but at the same time you are an incredible artist who can read people like a book. But this test will still tell you are stupid, and therefore society thinks you are stupid. So if you didn't get it from what I just said, I am against IQ tests. At the same time, I would love to take one. I've never taken any, and I would love to. Any official one. You can take many similar ones online and stuff like that, but I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about a proper one judged by a person afterwards. I would love to do that just so I got the number. That at the end of the day doesn't mean anything. So that makes me a bit of a hypocrite now, but I would be curious about it.
Yeah. Okay. So we won't go into IQ tests in detail, but let's look at other ways of measuring multiple intelligences. I think this might be the life happens, but you can too moment where we go to a quiz. Don't you think that?
Of course.
Do you feel a quiz coming on?
Yeah, I felt it.
We've got a humdinger this week. Actually, it's quite a deep psychological evaluation more than
quiz.
Because
this time it was me who found it. So when it's me, it's always more psychological.
And it's one, you might like doing it because there's no right or wrong answers. It's all about you and the different areas. We'll break it down later in a moment.
Yeah.
That you may excel in and may not excel in, what you're good at and what you're not good at. So going back to what I was saying, and also Michelle, that, everybody's good at something. This will really help you find out why. And so now I know you're gagging to do it. So I can tell you that the link to the quiz that you could do online after you finish listening to this podcast is in the description of this episode, wherever you're consuming it, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. So just go to the description and click on the link. After you've left a like for us and a subscribe, then you can find out what we're up to at any given moment. Let's have a look at the quiz. What it's not a quiz, actually. It's, how would you describe it? An assessment.
No, it's a test, I would say, but not a test in the way that you can answer wrong or will tell you are stupid when you don't know what the capital of Albania is. See what I did there? But in a way...
Can I say something?
No.
Tirana.
No. Nick, no one fucking asked you, okay?
But just in case they needed to know.
Oh gosh, okay.
Go back to describing the test.
It's put together by professionals, by psychologists, and it will basically tell you in percentage what area of intelligence you are the smartest in. Basically, it will tell you are this and this smart, which I like because, for example, I know the areas I'm smart in, but I didn't always know that. And I feel like it really helps you to navigate your hobbies, your free time, or your future career. So I think it's very helpful.
And the way you do it is it just gives you these statements. There's 45 of them. So you look at that and think, my God, this is going to take forever to do it. Well, I can tell you it doesn't. I've finished it in less than 5 minutes, way less than 5 minutes. So let's just give you kind of a taste of what to expect. there's a line and you have to literally with your cursor on your screen, you just move the line to either the left to the degree that you disagree with the statement or to the right to the extent that you agree with the statement. So if you
it's a scale answering system. That's what Nick is trying to say.
Thank you. Thank you for being so much more articulate in English than I am.
Clearly, I'm very language smart. What can I say?
You probably are, actually. That was very concise, and I wish you'd said that at the beginning, and I didn't have to start trying to describe it.
I needed to leave you with your misery for a moment.
I was floundering. So here's just a few examples of the questions. Number 1, I draw charts and tables to help me think. Agree or disagree? Number 2, I enjoy singing or playing a musical instrument. Agree or disagree? 3, I don't mind getting my hands dirty from activities that involve creating, fixing, or building things. Number 4, I am better at remembering faces than names. I had to really think about that one. Number 5, I often look things up in the dictionary. 6, I like sewing, carving, model building, or other activities that involve dexterity, and so on and so forth. So that's a taste of the kind of things. And then when you get to the end of it, it's going to give you an assessment that is based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 different intelligences. So I'm just looking now at my results, and it says that the first one is linguistic intelligence. Mine is apparently...
Is that your highest one?
No.
What's your highest one?
My highest one, it was musical intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Linguistic intelligence was 83%. Music intelligence was 90%, and those are my 2 highest. Whereas on the flip side, logical mathematical intelligence, I'm down at 27%.
I'm better.
I'm not surprised. Most people will be better. I'm surprised I got that much, to be honest.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So the intelligences that they measure then are, just to list them, linguistic intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, kinesthetic, I'm saying that wrong, aren't I? Intelligence, spatial visual intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, naturalistic intelligence, and existential intelligence. Actually, existential was my second lowest score. After 27%, it means I don't really know I exist.
No, I think that it's that you exist. You just don't really ask why, and you just roll with it.
Well, that's possibly true.
And you are not questioning it. What a happy person you are, Nick, really.
Better to be happy. So, can you explain to us what some of those intelligences mean?
So, basically, what you get, you don't only get the results, but you also get the explanation of every single area, which is quite long, and I definitely don't want to read it here. But to put it into a more simple way, just as I was saying before, that you are something smart, you get, if you are word smart, aka language smart, number smart, sound smart, body smart, in the way you can work with your hands mostly, picture smart, people smart, self smart, nature smart, or what they call cosmic smart, but it's the existential thing that we are talking about. So it's a lot about questioning how everything works and how universe is working and stuff like that, like existential questions. So, which is something that Nick apparently doesn't have. So that was just long story short, and then based on your results, you can read more about what type of smart you are.
So go and try it for yourself. As I said, you'll find a link in the description to this episode, and maybe it'll help you realize what you're good at. But you probably already know, I'm guessing.
Well, hopefully, I would hope so. Not everyone does.
Yeah, but if you're the kind of person who listens to Life Happens, you probably know. Because you've got a head start.
As I say, you can always know more about yourself, which also explains my highest score. But anyway.
Something I've just noticed in the notes that last week we were talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
And it applies to this as well. For example,
of course it does.
People who sound smart versus people who are thoughtful, or confidence being mistaken for intelligence. Discussed.
Before we get to that, I also wanted to sort of step back a bit and talk about why all of this even matters. Why should we know in what area we are smart? Why should we accept there is more than one intelligence? And I think it's mostly for people who maybe weren't good at school in the typical things that school is expecting you to be good at. And they were maybe told that they were stupid when they were children, because that's something that can really affect you. And I believe that when you believe as a kid that you are stupid, you will just stop trying. And for the rest of your life, you will just go with the fact that you are stupid and you will accept it. And maybe because of that, you will never really access your full potential, because you don't even try. Because why should you try if you think you are stupid, you know? So just because someone ever told you that you are stupid because you didn't know any math problem, you couldn't figure it out, you didn't know the capital of Albania, and someone, maybe your podcast colleague, made you feel like you are stupid because of that, ignore it. Because maybe that person who just told you would never be able to write a book or to see something behind an artwork. You know, as an artist, as an art person, it's so obvious for me when I'm going to a gallery or a museum with someone and you have these modern pieces when, for example, you only have blue canvas. And it's so funny seeing how people are like, oh, that's so stupid. That's not art. I could do that. And I'm immediately like, oh, so you might be math smart, but you are certainly not this smart because you don't understand it. And in my head, that makes you kind of stupid in this certain area. So, you know, don't let anyone tell you you are stupid. And don't be ashamed that you don't know something. You know, I don't know everything. And it was actually so funny. This week I had my French lesson, and French is this like second language I'm studying, basically my third. And I am able to study my third language in my second language, which is not something that everyone can do. And I was talking to my teacher, and we were practicing something, and she asked me a geography question, and I totally froze. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know that. And she was like, oh, in French you say. And I was like, no. I know the answer in French. I mean, it's not the language that's the problem. I just don't know the answer in general. And when she told me the answer, I was able to perfectly translate it into French. So I just thought it was such a funny moment, because I really felt stupid at that moment before I realized I'm able to study my third language in my second language, which I don't want to, you know, sound confident, but that doesn't really make me stupid, that fact alone. So don't let anyone make you feel stupid, and just find the area in what you are smart in. And also don't feel afraid to call people out. I absolutely love to do that when someone is trying to make me feel stupid for not knowing something in a conversation. And I'm always like, oh, I actually didn't know that. Like, thanks for letting me know. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I love learning. I love gaining new knowledge. But sometimes people are very rude about it. And so I'm like, well, I bet you don't know that, I don't know, PTSD is not only something veterans have. You know, and I just bring something of my knowledge and watch them not knowing the answer if they are being so rude about me not knowing the capital of Albania.
I can attest to the fact that Michelle does call you out on these things.
Yes, I will call you out on everything. So, Neg, how is your second and third language anyway?
Tirana, by the way. So we were going to talk about the confidence illusion. And Bonjour. Ça va?
Wow. Look at you go.
Dobry den. Just to give you a little rundown, little taster of my linguistic skills.
Of course, we get it. We get it, Nick. It's fine.
So I was just illustrating the confidence illusion. People who sound smart versus people who are thoughtful, or confidence being mistaken for intelligence.
But speaking of that, I also think that, like, I don't know, that might be your case because obviously it never really happened to me. But did anyone ever think that you are stupid because you don't speak Czech?
Probably.
When you were living in Czechia?
Probably. But I don't know. You have to ask everybody in Czechia that I dealt with.
You wouldn't understand them if they said so, right? Never mind then.
But I could order a beer and pay for it, which in Czechia is probably 90%
That's all you need.
90% of what
Literally.
you need.
Literally. Throw some swear words in it and you are basically Czech at this point. But don't throw them now in the podcast, okay? We still don't need to get cancelled, so thank you.
I don't actually swear in Czech. So going back to the sounding smart versus being smart. And actually, there's a whole thing about social perceptions of that we make judgments about people. Say, oh, he sounds intelligent. And we don't know. They could be.
That goes all the way to also something we already talked about, the halo effect. When someone knows a one random fun fact and presents it in great confidence, and everyone around suddenly think that he's the smartest person there is. And that also comes back to the very beginning of this episode when I said that I met a lot of people with fancy degrees who are actually really stupid from, the person's point of view, I would say. Because when someone tells you, oh, I have degree in this and from this school, it can be very impressive. And you're like, wow, I don't have that. I feel stupid around you. But as I said, I love, getting new knowledge. So I start talking to that person and suddenly you see how they can't really form their thoughts and they are acting like just because they learned some sort of knowledge as a poem, as I said, and they can tell it back to you. They are the smartest person there is, but they actually don't really understand it themselves. They just remember what word to put after the other. And so, again, I stand by it. And there are people, one of the most smart people I've ever met are often people who don't have like university degrees at all. And they are the smartest people you can talk to. And I'm saying it as someone who will go back to school and back to university in a few months. So like, it's not like I'm shaming education. I'm just saying it's not everything.
No, it's not. And that's very true. And we have an expression in English for that.
Of course you do.
That people would say, you ask somebody you've just met, and what university did you go to? Oh, the University of Life. Yeah, haven't heard of that.
I hate that saying. We have the same one, and it's just, I feel like everyone who I've ever met who told me that was actually very stupid. And not because they didn't have university, but because they were overly confident with a very little to back it up.
Well, it is a bit of a cliche, but as it's implied, it just means that you've learned from your experience of life.
To wrap this whole episode out, I just want to say to let us know what type of smart you are. And if there is some specific area you are smart at, let us know. Let us know the most crazy fun fact you know. I love getting random bits of knowledge in areas I have no idea about. So please do that. Do that for us and for yourself. Stop underestimating yourself. Be proud of the knowledge you have and let people know that you are actually fucking smart.
That's a good ending. And just to cap that, I would want to reinforce the fact that Tirana is the capital of Albania.
Thank you. I gained new knowledge today. Thank you, Nick.